Right, that was a snippet of the PM speech at UNGA. Now we have with us Arinah Najwa, Director of BowerGroup Asia, to share her thoughts. Thank you for joining us, Arinah. Right, let's get your thoughts on Anwar's first appearance as PM in one of the largest gathering of world leaders here. What were the key points that stood out to you?
I think firstly, the Prime Minister touched on very key issues that kind of balance out the progressive nature that he wants to take.
Also, at the same time, still maintain the local interest. So, for example, he talked about Ukraine and he stood against, the invasion of Russia into Ukraine. He also spoke out against Palestine, and we know in Malaysia that's an issue that's very strong, and it's something that we care about deeply when we're talking about the genocide of the Palestinians. In addition to that, he also took a stance on Afghanistan. Interestingly, he said Malaysia still wants to continue our people-to-people relations. So I thought that was interesting because there was no acknowledgement of the government per se. So acknowledging that there could be some relations, but no strong issue of recognizing them as a government, while still condemning the fact that they are discriminatory towards women. At the same time, we saw towards halfway through the speech and big issue of climate. So that's also a very progressive stance. So I feel it was a good take, a strong stance of the Prime Minister talking about the key issues and current issues that are happening today, while still, kind of maintaining that local interest and still talking or linking it back to what the locals care about.
Right. Arinah, one of the main things that were raised also by PM Anwar is the rising polarization and rivalry between major powers of the world. Now, how do you foresee developing nations as well as, small countries like Malaysia navigate these challenges?
Yep. I think in Malaysia, we are, kind of strategic in terms of our location. And also in the future, this is where, a lot of things are happening within the region. There's a lot more population will grow within ASEAN and will double in the next, few decades. So a lot of attention will be in this region, and especially if we're looking at, the tension between US and China and their influence within the region as well. So I think here, Malaysia, although we are small, we still have things that, the global powers care about. Number one, resources. So especially if we're looking into renewable energy, rare earth is something that Malaysia has, something that we can produce. So that could be a leveraging point for us and the global powers. Second, also trade routes. So going back to the point about, our, relationship between US and China, which will prevail. So Malaysia has been quite smart in taking friends to many, enemy to none kind of approach. So I think here, this is when Malaysia can be strategic. That although we're not a very large market, we are still very strategic in terms of the resources that we have and also the location that we're in.
Right. I mean, talking about trade ties as well as, market in Malaysia, Anwar also attended a series of engagements with big name companies, you see Google, Amazon as such, to spur investments in Malaysia. Now, Malaysia have had a couple tough years on the investment front. Has he sent the right messages, with these engagements, and will they help actually send out a message to the investment community of their views or improve their views on Malaysia?
I think definitely. I think the first thing, that the Prime Minister has done is kind of show force of stability. I think a lot of other countries or companies weren't sure of what's going to happen in Malaysia, especially in the last 5 years. So I think this is a show force of, stability, and there's some continuity that they can expect from the country. So that's a good sign. Second, the Prime Minister showed that Malaysia is open. So really calling into a lot of investments and companies to come in and invest into the country. I think what will kind of make or break some of these decisions are the implementations and actually going into the details of, expanding in Malaysia, because, there might be some clauses or some regulations that, some of these corporations may or may not want. So it really boils down into those types of negotiations. But overall, I think, the Prime Minister has set the right tone in showing that Malaysia is open and Malaysia is willing to kind of, listen in and, accept some of these foreign investments.